Grand Rising, all of you beautiful souls. Today is March 21st, 2022, the first day after the spring equinox here where I live in the Pacific Northwest. This is the Heart of the Soul podcast, and I'm your host, Amana. This is a place where we remember what it means to be wild, living animals upon this earth. Here I share raw, heartfelt stories of birth, life, and death, where we connect about that which unites us while honoring our distinct expressions of living. I believe that women are magnificent, wise, and ultra-connected beings. I am going to light this little candle that I made now as a symbol of our connectedness, that we all stand upon this earth with a flaming fire at its core, as we revolve around a flaming ball of fire we call the sun. We are all warmed by this sun at our crowns, the sun that lights our days, grows our food, grows us all. I'm currently on call to be virtual support to a mother who will be free birthing in Montana any day now. So I will have my ringer on my phone, so you might hear some messages come through. And that's why. Today I have Sarah Schmid with me. She's a woman, a writer. She trained to be a doctor in the medical system. She has an incredible YouTube channel where I have been watching her videos for years. She shares her own stories with personal insights, several of her birth videos, and so much more. I love her laundry talk segments where she speaks about important things while folding laundry. So Sarah, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me, Amanda.
I would love to have you also take a moment, introduce yourself in the way that feels good to you.
Yes, of course. I'm Sarah. I'm a mom of 9 kids now. Our youngest was born in January. And yeah, my first baby was a home birth because I was working in the medical system at that time and training to become a medical doctor, and I saw how they did birth in the hospital, and it was nothing I could imagine for me. So I could imagine giving birth. This didn't seem to be a problem, but not under these conditions. No, just if absolutely necessary. So we hired a midwife, and I had a home birth with my first, and I free birthed all the others later because I learned a lot about birth with my first birth. I think everybody does. And I learned that it has a big influence who is in the room when you give birth. Before I didn't realize it was such a sensitive thing, because otherwise I get along with people. I don't mind if they are a little strange, or if I don't like them, I'll get over it. But in the situation of birth, it's different. And that's why I choose to be just me, and I need to be the boss of my birth, so I keep the strength to give birth if I'm the boss. If there's somebody else that wants to tell me what to do, then it feels like it sucks away my strength. I need to be the one that determines what's going on, what I do and what I don't do. So that's why I free birth the others. Yeah, and I'm also homeschooling and doing Weston Price, if somebody knows what that is. Yeah.
Yes, and can you tell everyone where you live in the world right now?
Yes, of course. Yes, we are in France right now. I'm German, actually. We are from Germany, but the situation in Germany for families is not so nice. Especially, you are not allowed to homeschool. You get in conflict with the laws and everything. So
yeah, I heard that some laws recently changed in France. Will that affect your ability to homeschool your children or not?
We have a school. We are connected to a school, and that's why it won't change for us. But yes, it will change for those who do the homeschooling with the public authorities. But we do it in a
Yes.
Yeah, you know.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. I'm just, yeah. So for my son, I have a son who's 5 and he has not been to school, and we're planning to do self-directed learning with him as well. I loved that when I received your book and I saw the self-directed, I was like, "Oh, I love this term. It's so wonderful." Um, yeah, and we're still in the process of like looking into what we have to do to abide by the laws or whatnot as he grows older.
Yes, I love to do everything self-directed. That's a good word for what I do.
Yes. And I know I do elimination communication with my children as well. And so I loved watching some of those videos of yours. I like to call it intuitive toileting. That like feels more for me, the language that I like to use. When were you first exposed to that aspect of your mothering and care?
It was when our oldest was 6 months old. From the beginning, I was like, there must be another way than just using your pants as a toilet. But I didn't know anything. My mother, when I grew up, she still used cloth diapers, but I found this not very practical. You have to wash it, and it was easier for me as a first-time mom to just use the disposal diapers. And but then when she was about 6 months old, I stumbled across Elimination Communication on the internet, and it was a little late because at 6 months it's usually they start crawling, rolling around, and the best time is in the beginning, the first 3 months. Then it works the best. You catch almost every pee. Even now, our youngest, she's 2 months old now, and it's so easy to catch almost everything. And so I use cloth diapers, and it's really easy because I don't have to wash much. The poo is always in the potty and the pee most of the time. And even though I have 8 other kids, I managed to catch her whatever comes out. So, but it gets more difficult when they grow older. So if you have some good experience and success rate was high, then it's more you're more motivated to keep on doing it.
Yes. I hear that from people too, oftentimes that, yeah, as kids start moving, they start having challenges with it. But yeah, like you're saying, if it's more established in the beginning, like I never had that with my 2 children. My daughter's almost 2 now, and she'll walk herself over to the little potty and sit down. She's been out of diapers for, I don't know, at least 6 months or more. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it in the beginning, and then it gets more bumpy. But when they know how to use the potty, which can be quite early, as soon as they walk stable, as they not just a few steps, but if they can walk good in a good stable way, and then they can sit on the potty, and then it's not far to that they do it on their own.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, my husband actually was the one to catch my daughter's first meconium poop like a couple hours after she was born this time, which was really fun. I was sort of like, I don't know if that's what she wants right now. She was just a few hours old, but he held her over the big toilet, and sure enough, like all the meconium went straight into the toilet. I was like, way to go, Dad.
Yeah, it seems they know what to do. Our last baby now, I held her over the potty for the first pee, and she peed. She did the meconium right after birth, so she came out, and the poo was like splashing all over.
Yes, you never know how that will unfold there. I do you happen to have your book with you there? No?
Right over there.
I wonder if you might read on page 10. It says, in the beginning, and you speak of birth and death. those first couple of paragraphs.
Mhm.
Would you be open to
Yeah.
reading them out?
Yeah. How far should I read?
The first 2 paragraphs until like this little swirl happens, maybe.
Oh, yes. Yes. In the beginning, our life on this earth starts with birth and ends with death. We are all born and we all die at some point. There's nothing which touches us more in our being than birth and death, the beginning and end of our life. To take away some of the threats of mortality, humankind has introduced rituals, traditions, and taboos. Standard procedures that reassure us when there's nothing else to reassure. This book is about birthing and about the time in which a woman is with child, about the time in which we would like to drift in the sea of life in the expectation of new horizons, if it weren't for all the health warnings and advice from well-meaning people on the shore.
I love that you wrote this. I love that you also speak of birth and death within the same sentence. I find often, like in the birth world, people don't want to hear the word death. And so I love that you just put it right out here in the beginning.
Yeah, I think this is an important aspect of birth, because this is where the fear comes from, fear of death. When it comes to birth, the medical establishment is very afraid of death because it can happen at birth. So we have to challenge our fear of death if we want to approach birth without fear. And that's why I think it's important to look at both, at birth and death at the same time. If you really want to approach birth in the fullness that it is.
Yes. And for you, like, how did that, in your journey, like, how did you face death or process that possibility in your own experiences?
Yeah, when I prepared for Freebirth, there's always the possibility of death. And if I don't face it, then the fear will be there. And I want to approach my birth fearless and enjoy it. And that's why I have to think about the possibility of death. What happens if the baby dies? What happens if I die? What can I do to prevent it? So I have to ask these questions. Maybe I don't fully answer them, but I have to face it, because when I don't face those serious questions, then they will continue to linger and cause fear and discord.
Yeah. I felt for me, I had to acknowledge that death was a possibility, and that, yes, there are all these things I could do to prepare and maybe, change that it might happen, but also know that even if I do everything right, it doesn't mean that death might not still happen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's just
Yeah.
a part.
In the end, I cannot control everything. I think this is also an aspect of it, that the modern society has this illusion that they can control everything, especially in birth. They think they can control everything, and I'm aware I can't. And that gives me a kind of freedom to follow the flow without knowing every detail of the way that's going to happen. I just flow with it, and I don't have to control it. You can't control the river, and you can't control birth. And if you don't, then there's so much freedom and so much beauty in there that you can't discover this without letting go, without flowing.
Yes, I love that you bring that up, because I think a lot of the medical system like wants to take control, and we often, like, as women, can give them control in the medical system and think that they have control over the situation, but in reality it's like you said, an illusion that they even have control. Here where I live, over 98% of babies are birthed in the hospital. And that's also where they die. Like, they're not dying outside of the hospital, they're dying within the hospital. So people often think I'm going to the hospital and that means my baby won't die or I won't die, but that's not actually the truth.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you had any deaths, that you have experienced in your family or friend circle that brought that a more deeper awareness for you?
Not really, just in recent years when I how do you say that? If I'm supporting a woman that's pregnant, then it can happen that she has the miscarriage or that the baby dies at birth. But I haven't been there when it happened personally. Just there was a doula that contacted me, or a woman who free birthed and her baby was a surprise breech and they didn't know how to handle it. And so I have experienced this in later years, but not at the beginning. Just with animals. So I had a favorite rabbit, and when she gave birth to her first babies, she died because I don't know, her pelvis must have been too small. The baby was just stuck. So we had rabbits and we also ate them, and so I was always interested in how these things work. That's why also I studied medicine. And I took the rabbit apart, and we could see that the first baby was stuck with a head in the pelvis. So this was really interesting to see.
Wow.
So I knew things can go wrong, even in animals. Yeah, of course, the wild animals, I think they are better off because they can feed themselves and they grow better than if you have domesticated animals, and they are, yeah.
Yeah. So, some of the things that have drawn me to you and soaking in your book and your content on YouTube is the ways that you move through life, like in like doing things outside of the box of norm, which I find myself as well with things like free birthing at home. I am, self-directed learning with my son, choosing against like the normal vaccine protocols. And I wonder if you might share like your philosophy around why diversity is like discouraged in society and why you think it's important for us to encourage and hold space for diversity, and how you are able to be this diverse person amongst a society that is more closed-minded than you are.
I think it starts early. When you train a child, you can train it to, and that's what society does, to do things a special way, to think a special way, and there are boundaries right and left, and you're not allowed to think outside of it. And it's like, in the end, they just follow this thinking pattern, and they don't know how to think in any other way. And I was raised quite liberal. No, I didn't go to kindergarten. I started school when I was 7, but before I was at home and we played in our big garden, and there was a lot of time to just be and to learn by myself and to observe nature and to do all these things that modern kids can't do because they are scheduled. They have a busy schedule, and they do this and that, and they are entertained all the time. And if you are not entertained all the time as a kid, you develop in another way. You become creative because you have to deal with things that just time is boring, and you have to entertain yourself and to come up with ideas. You're not just managed. And I think that's made me a free thinker, because I had to think myself, and I thought about many things. And from the beginning, I was an observer. I would observe everything. I would find out about all the animals, all the birds that were living in our garden. I had this book with birds, and I had my binoculars, and I would find out every bird that was there and which one was it in the book. And so I think growing up in a different way is makes it much easier to become a diverse person compared to when you are scheduled and in this box.
Yeah.
but I also had to free my mind of many patterns that I had learned in school, because I had to go to school. I thought school was extremely boring and a waste of 12 years of my life. But I tried to make the best out of it. And yeah, I was bored a lot in school, so I wrote stories and painted, and I did everything you can do with a paper and a pen, which is difficult. You can't do much with a paper and a pen, but I did everything you can. Yeah, and later, I would when I studied medicine, I was just curious to find out how is this medical system working, and because I had some experiences with the medical system that were strange. I was told the medical system is good for you, and they do everything that's good for your health, and you can trust them. But what I experienced was that it's quite without love, and they don't care about you. They just do their protocols, and if you don't fit in, then you get punished, or you just stay sick. So that's why I studied it, because I wanted to understand how it's working and what's wrong with it. And also, yeah, it didn't help me often. So they had their lists. What do you do? What do you do to avoid tooth decay? Okay, you brush your teeth, you go to the dentist, and you prefer not to eat sugar. I did all that, and still I had cavities. So there had to be something wrong in the picture. So I researched and I looked for answers, and I found answers in the Weston Price diet, and I learned I can stop tooth decay. And I experienced it myself, because I had this X-ray with the cavities, and I did another one 9 months later, and the cavities had not grown or anything. And now 10 years later, I have not gotten any new cavities since. And before, I had cavities every year.
Oh, wow.
So I figured there is a way to health. And if something is good for your teeth, it can't be bad for the rest. And that's how I started on the alternative health journey. And
yeah,
and it's good for fertility, and it's good for everything. If you find out how to keep yourself healthy in one place, it will affect the rest in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about is it Western Price? Is that what you call it?
Weston Price. Weston Price was the dentist in the US. Yeah, I don't know if you have heard about him. Yeah, he was a dentist and living in the 30s, 1930 something. And he traveled the world to find out what was wrong with modern society and their health, because he was seeing health decline in his patients, and he didn't know how to help them. And his own son died after he did a dental procedure on him. So there was strong motivation to find out what was wrong. And he traveled almost the whole world, and he studied native people and took pictures of their teeth and analyzed what they were eating and compared it to the modern diet or to the diet of the white population that was in these countries. And he found, and he also studied the native population that had adopted a Western diet. And he could see that the first generation, after the parents had adopted the modern diet, they had a big decline in health. The teeth started to come in crowded. Before they were almost immune to a tooth decay, the teeth started to just decay away. So there was a big shift when the parents adopted the modern diet. And he found that traditional diets, they had a 10 times higher amount of fat soluble, I can't speak this in
soluble, yeah.
And also I think about 10 times higher in minerals. So overall, at that time, they didn't know all the vitamins that we know now, but he found out enough to invent a diet for his patients to stop tooth decay. So this is a very interesting, I don't know, this is the book that he wrote, and nutrition and physical degeneration. And it brought answers to me. How can we be healthy? How was it meant from nature to be healthy without medicine and doctors and pharmacy and everything? And
Yeah, lovely. It's so good to have more awareness about these different possibilities and ways of moving through life and choosing different foods as medicine.
And my motivation was also to become independent from the medical system, because I found the medical system to be evil in its core. There are many nice people that are working there, but the core seems to be something. This is anti-human.
Yes, I mean, I agree. I grew up very like in a family where the medical system was revered and you go to the doctor, and I actually became a registered nurse and practiced in a hospital for several years. And I just found that, even though like they had these charts saying that like the patient comes first, the patient's at the top, but when in the practices and how they treated patients, it was so obvious that patients were not coming first, that it was money and making money coming first. Like, yes, there are beautiful, amazing people within the medical system who I think get in it wanting to do good, but the system at its core is, like you said, evil, like not.
It's about money, that everybody wants to cover his or her butt to not be sued, and this is a big thing in especially in the birth field. It's not about what's the best for the woman, but about that everybody covers his or her butt so that they won't get sued, and that's why they do a lot of completely unnecessary interventions and restrict women from free choice.
Yes, they disempower them like as soon as they enter the hospital, stripping them of their clothing, putting a tag on their wrist. It just,
Put the IV in, and it's not the way that I wanted to give birth, and it was easy for me to decide I stay at home as long as I don't need medical intervention.
Yes. I love how you describe your second birth that you chose. You found an outdoor spot.
Yeah. It was in Sweden. We lived in Sweden at the time, and the forest was just behind the house. And he was due in July, so it was warm outside.
Yes. And that you also spoke of like having some constipation and I think that was with your first child, and realizing that walks in the forest healed that. It was just, that's all you needed. You didn't need a pill or something like that. You just needed to walk out in the forest.
Yeah.
On page 39, you have this little paragraph that starts, "Dear Mother," and maybe I'll just read it here, but I just love it and actually have read it to a few of the women in my life right now that are preparing to birth. You say, "Dear Mother, you are beautiful with your belly and your soft curves. What is happening inside you is as ordinary as it could possibly be, but yet it is miraculous. You are growing life and will birth a tiny new human. Enjoy it. You are carrying a miracle and are miraculous yourself." I just think that is so beautiful and so true. It holds the both sides of like pregnancy and birth being this like ordinary experience. Like sometimes people relate it to like pooping, like it's just as ordinary and natural as like pooping. No one tells you how to poop and you do it, and birth is the same. And yet it's also this miraculous, amazing event to have to bring this new tiny life into the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like many things in nature are miraculous and still ordained. Like now in spring, everything is suddenly blooming, and the trees that were gray, they become green, and it's so ordinary, but it's still a miracle every time, every spring. And this is the same with birth.
Yes, yes. For women who have maybe never heard of free birth, although we've been talking about it this conversation, but like what I like in the end of your book when you have stories, you say, when I hear the word free birth, the following thoughts pop into my head. I wonder if maybe you could share what pops into your head and maybe tell the viewers a little bit about what free birth means to you.
Free birth means that you're free to birth the way you are and you feel is best for you. That's what is free birth for me. I try to think of something else. Yeah, without any restrictions from other people that tell you what to do and not to do, but that you do it in your rhythm, in your way, in the place you want to be, with the help that you need, and the help you don't want, you don't get. Because often nowadays you get help that you don't want.
Yeah. Yes. Do you have one birth story, maybe your most recent one, I don't know, that sticks out in your mind that you might like to share today?
The recent one. It's not in the book because the book is quite a few years ago, and I'm working on an update, but it's not. I don't have so much time.
Of course.
Yeah, my birth of number 9. I can tell you about birth number 9 because it's fresh.
Yes, wonderful.
She was
And
the
yeah,
first.
you can start wherever it begins for you, maybe even like with her
Yeah.
pregnancy or yeah.
Yeah, I'll start with what's important for the birth later. The whole pregnancy was different than the others because the placenta was anterior, and I tried to feel the baby, and it felt different than the babies before because it was laying in a posterior position a long time. And I thought it's twins again because I had twins with number 7 and 8, and it almost felt like twins because it was in such a strange position. And until the end, it was not engaged into the pelvis, unlike the others. And usually I pass my due date. My babies don't come earlier, they come later. So my latest until that point was 13 days past my due date. And this time I would also go, I was 14 days past my due date. And the baby was not in the pelvis. And I was like, it should happen soon. You should come into the pelvis now. I was a little, but on the evening when the birth started, I suddenly felt, oh, the baby must be in the pelvis. It feels different. I know how it feels when the baby is low, and I feel it when I walk. When I walk, it feels like I'm I don't know, like I like a loaded ship when I'm deep in the water. It's like I don't know, you feel deeper somehow.
Yes.
And so I knew, oh, okay, the baby's in the pelvis. And at the same time, the first contraction started. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I put down one of my twins to sleep. It was at night in the evening, about 10 or so. And when I was laying in bed, contraction stopped, and she seemed to slid out of the pelvis again. I was like, shoot. But when I got up, just about 10 minutes later, it sunk down to the pelvis again, and contractions started again. So I was like, this is interesting, because the nights before, I only had contractions when I would lay down, and this was the opposite. So I just did my kitchen and everything I have to do in the evening, and contractions became more and stronger, and I was like, this is going to be it. I think so. So I put the kids to bed, and only our second son, he's 11, he stayed up with me, and he helped me set up everything. He was so sweet. He made fire in the fireplace, and put up the candles, and yeah, he was so sweet. And he was like asking me questions. Do you want it this way or that way? And I was already in birthing la la land, and I was like, whatever, whatever. He did it really nice. And I called my photographer team. There were two ladies who came to take photos and to film. And then I was just sitting on my birth ball, birthing ball and breathing through my contractions. And my son was on the sofa reading his Mickey Mouse comic. And yeah, that's how most of the first stage went by. And I was like, oh, I hope they make it in time, because both of my ladies, it took them 2 hours, 1 hour drive, and then they both have kids, and they had to prepare everything to get away from home. So I was like, oh, I hope they make it in time, because many of my babies, they just came quite fast. But they made it in time, and then it was time. Yeah, I think about half an hour later, it was already time to push when they came. So it was really close together. And yeah, they set up everything, and my husband was there. He came in later, and yeah, then it was time to push, and it was different this time also, because I had some what you call sticky shoulder. The shoulder would not rotate as smoothly as the other ones. So usually I give birth standing, and this time I was I love that. But I tried to push. The baby just got out until here, and then it stopped. And this is it really feels awful when it's stretching all the time for a long time. So I was pushing, and then I remembered, okay, when the shoulder is not coming out well, then you change position. So I went on all fours, and the baby slid out. So it was quite easy in the end, but it was different. It was not like I was used to it. And yeah, she was fine. I welcomed her. The short was quite short. I was kneeling above her, and I could not take her to my breast because the short was so short. And my second son, who was there all the time, he cut the cord later, because first I wanted to birth the placenta before cutting the cord, because I think this is better. But I could not move anywhere, and it felt like I have to move, and so we cut the cord. It was not pulsing anymore, and I gave birth to the placenta standing. I have found out that the way you birth the baby, it's also the easiest way to birth the placenta. Yeah, and we put her on the scale, and she was larger than all my other babies. I had not expected a large baby, but that's probably also the reason why the shoulder was sticky. Yeah, and then after all the welcoming part, my photographer team, they went home, and I stayed on the sofa and nursed my baby, and everything was quiet in the house and sleeping, and then I took my baby and we went to bed. And yeah, next morning everybody was excited and greeting the baby, and yeah.
Yes. And she is 2 months now?
2 months now.
Yes. And how have these first 2 months been for you and her and the whole family?
Yeah, it's always you have to adapt to a new situation, especially the kids and the smaller kids. But the twins did really well. I think they are already used to share me with somebody else, so it was not such a drama like with the others that were just one, and then where then was coming a small sibling. So they did really fine. So there was not so much drama. But as long as the nights are in the first month, she would not sleep. You didn't know when she would sleep. So often in the evening she would be awake for until 2 in the night or something like that. So I couldn't plan my sleeping as I'm used to. But as soon as the nights were good, normal routine could pick up again. And yeah.
Wonderful. Is there anything you feel like other women should know about birth or mothering that you haven't already spoken of?
Yeah, I think it's no, I started another way. When we were still living more traditionally, we would learn from our parents and our grandparents how to do things. And we would often also experience things firsthand. The mother would have more babies, and we would experience how it would be to have a baby and how to do all these stuff that you do with a baby and with kids, raising kids also. And nowadays we all have books, and we read books and we think we know how to do it, but it doesn't work. You can't take a book and think you know it all. It's not that easy, and that's what I did in the beginning. And it can be really very confusing because one book says another thing than the other book. But then in reality, it's still different. So it's best to if you cannot learn from another family or don't have your own experience from your own family, then it's best to not have so many preoccupations about how things should be and how you should be as a mother. Because many mothers, they think they have to be a certain way, and they put so much pressure on themselves, and they are just stressed out because of this. And this is completely unnecessary. It's just you find your own way, and you try to figure things out that work, and you just get away with the stuff that you have in your head. Maybe you can use it if it's useful, but if it just puts stress on you and makes you feel you're a bad mother, then you just throw it out. It's not worth it. Yeah.
Yes, I love that you also use the term self-directed when speaking about mothering, like finding your self-directed mothering, because I find this so true. I feel like it's so many of us, I myself included, compare myself to what other mothers are doing rather than turning in and being like, no, but what like feels good to me? How is my particular child reacting to this? Because also each child is different, and how we mother them shifts and changes. And so I love that you incorporated that into mothering too.
Yeah. You can't copy somebody else because he has different children than you, and he's a different person. And especially also there are mothers who have only girls, and it's a whole different story if you have only boys or if you have a lot of boys. I had a mother, she has only girls, and her youngest, now he's 2 or so, he's a boy, but she could not understand how violent it was with my kids and how they were with each other. And she was like, oh, all the time, and I was like, hello, boys. But she had no experience. She had only nice girls. And of course, this is a completely different story. And also, if you have kids that are maybe ADHD and something on the spectrum, which is existing, and which is not only, it's another topic, but it's not only vaccine related, with which I thought, because my first 2, they are on the spectrum. And at first I thought I would never experience this because I do everything right. We don't use vaccines, so we should not be affected, but we are because of other factors like the gut flora. The microbiome is an important issue in this whole story, which I didn't know at the time, which I knew later. And my later kids, they are fine. They are not especially different. But I didn't know in the beginning. And those kids, they are also another story, I can tell you. So you cannot judge anybody how he is doing with his kids, and because everybody has its own way of doing things, his own story, his own. So it's just, you have to adapt to the situation.
Absolutely. Well, as we come to a close, I wonder if you would please share with people how they can access your bodies of work, where to find you on YouTube, your website, your books, things like that.
Yeah, I'm almost everywhere. I have a YouTube channel. If you just type my name, then you should find the YouTube channel. I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Telegram, and they can contact me on whichever way they want. Just on Instagram, I only check my messages only every 2 weeks, because I get so many messages. I have to,
prioritize. Yeah. I'll absolutely include links in the show notes so that people can get directly there easily. And do you also do any like mentoring one-on-one with women right now, or?
Yeah. I also have groups. I do mentoring who want whatever they want to know or do. And I have groups to several topics. Most of them are in German, but I also have English-speaking groups. I have one English-speaking group on Telegram and one on Facebook.
Wonderful. So anything else you'd like to say before I close?
I think I said everything.
Wonderful. I'm so grateful to have gotten to spend this time with you today. And for any of you that would like to learn more about the ways that I mentor and support women during the times of pregnancy, birth, and mothering, you're welcome to book a free clarity call with me or check out my offerings on earthingnova.love. Please remember that you are magnificent and unique. There is truly no one else just like you. Be brave, be bold, be love, be you.